My name is Doris Schmitz. I am 28 years old, and I used to believe I understood the man I loved. Ralph and I had been together for 4 years, planning a future that felt solid, steady, safe. We were at that point in life where every conversation somehow circled back to houses, long-term commitments, family expectations, and everything adults pretend they are ready for even when they are not. I thought we were building something honest, something real. I was wrong. It started 3 months ago, or at least that was when I noticed the first tremor. Ralph came home late one evening, cheeks flushed with excitement, announcing that he had been promoted at his marketing firm. Bigger salary, larger responsibilities, more travel, and a corner office he described with such vivid detail I felt like I had already seen it. I believed him instantly. Why wouldn't I? We celebrated with champagne. I posted about it. He pretended to be shy about the attention. Looking back, that moment was the first thread he expected me never to pull. He told me his new role required occasional trips. Once a month, maybe, he said casually, while packing dress shirts I'd never seen him wear before. I didn't question it. I figured this was adulthood, the beginnings of a new chapter, even if it meant more distance and less time together. But last week, everything shattered. Ralph had been particularly stressed. He'd texted me vague things like, "Today was a nightmare," or "back-to-back clients again." He sounded exhausted. I wanted to do something kind, something supportive. So I decided to surprise him with lunch at his office. Just a simple gesture, a reminder that he wasn't alone. I walked into the building with a small bag of takeout, humming to myself, feeling light. I approached the front desk, smiling. "Hi, I'm looking for Ralph Davis. He works in marketing." The receptionist blinked at me with polite confusion. "I'm sorry, who?" "Ralph Davis," I repeated, still smiling. "Marketing. Corner office, third floor." She typed something, then typed again. Her brows pulled together. "Ma'am, no one by that name works here." I felt a strange internal drop, like the world shifting 2 centimeters to the left. "That's impossible," I said, forcing a laugh. "He's been here for years." She apologized again and called HR. A manager came down, looked genuinely sympathetic, and told me plainly Ralph resigned 4 months ago. 4 months ago. I couldn't breathe for a moment. I thanked them, though I didn't remember doing it, and walked to my car in a daze. I sat in the driver's seat with the engine off my hands, frozen on the steering wheel. Where had he been going every day? What were the client meetings? The travel? The stress? The lies were so large I hadn't even recognized them as lies. I waited until he came home that evening at his usual 6:45. He loosened his tie, kicked off his shoes, and sighed dramatically, as if returning from a long day at work. "How was work?" I asked quietly. He didn't even look up. Exhausting. 3 meetings back to back. My stomach twisted. There was something horrifying about watching someone lie while looking you straight in the eyes so casually, so comfortably. I reached into my bag and placed the resignation letter on the table. The HR manager had given me a printed copy after seeing my expression. "Which clients?" The way Ralph's face shifted, it was like watching a spotlight hit an actor mid-performance, destroying the illusion. His jaw stiffened. His eyes darted to the paper. For a moment, he tried to deny it. Then he got angry. Then he accused me of invading his privacy. When that didn't work, his entire posture collapsed, and he finally confessed. He'd been laid off 4 months ago. But instead of telling me he'd left the house every day at 8 a.m., spending hours in coffee shops, libraries, even parks, anywhere he could pretend to be employed. The business trips were visits to an old college friend 2 hours away. The client meetings were simply nothing. He used his severance pay to maintain the illusion. He even downloaded templates online to create fake pay stubs. My heart hurt in ways I hadn't expected. It wasn't the lie itself that crushed me. It was how meticulously he had crafted the world around it. How effortlessly he'd let me praise him publicly, knowing it was hollow. How he watched me believe. When I asked why he didn't just tell me the truth, he looked at me with a sincerity that made me nauseous. "I only lied because I didn't want to hurt you," he said softly. "You would have panicked. You would have tried to fix things. I was protecting us. That's called love." I stared at him, stunned. "No, that's deception." "You don't understand," he insisted. "I did it so you wouldn't stress, so we could keep planning our future without interruptions, so everything could stay stable." "Stable," I repeated. "You've been lying to me every day for 4 months." He tried to argue, to spin it, to convince me that his lie was noble, that I should be grateful he shielded me from unnecessary stress. When I refused to accept that logic, he accused me of being overdramatic, ungrateful, insensitive. His gaslighting wasn't even subtle, it was polished, practiced. I felt something inside me detach like a thread finally snapping. I grabbed my keys, told him I needed space, and walked out before he could follow. I drove to my friend's place where the silence of her guest room felt like a refuge. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I replayed his words, the ease with which he had inverted responsibility, the calmness with which he'd built a false world around us. By morning, my phone had exploded. Dozens of missed calls, except almost none were from Ralph. They were from his mother, Patricia, a woman who had always hovered over our relationship, always sharpening her opinions into something that felt like pressure. She had texted relentlessly, "How dare you? We need to talk. Now. You are destroying my son's future." I stared at those messages, realizing with a cold, heavy certainty, Ralph's lie was only the beginning. His mother was about to make everything exponentially worse. Patricia did not wait for an invitation. She never had. By the time I finished brushing my teeth that morning, my friend called up the stairs, her voice tight. "Doris, someone's at the door asking for you." My stomach dropped. I already knew. I stepped into the hallway just as Patricia Davis pushed her way inside my friend's home with the confidence of a woman who believed boundaries existed only for other people. She didn't bother greeting anyone. She didn't even look at me first. She stormed past the living room furniture as if she owned it, muttering sharp, agitated breaths. Then she spotted me. "There you are," she snapped, her eyes blazing. "We need to talk." My friend stood beside me, alarmed. "Patricia, this is my house. You can't just walk in." "This is between me and Doris," Patricia cut in, waving her off like she was a gnat. "Family business." I folded my arms. "We are not married, Patricia. Ralph and I are dealing with something serious, and I need space." "Space," she barked. "You humiliated my son." I blinked. He lied to me for 4 months. Patricia's face contorted with something strange, indignation mixed with blind loyalty. "He lied because he loves you," she insisted, leaning forward. "He didn't want you to worry. He's been protecting you from stress while you two were planning your future. And this is how you repay him, by running away." I felt my jaw tighten. He wasn't protecting me. He was hiding the truth. That's not the same. "Oh, please," she scoffed loudly. "You're being dramatic. Typical. Always needing everything to be perfect and controlled. Ralph was trying to handle things like a man, Doris. He didn't need your panic piled on top." I stared at her, stunned. She truly believed her son's deception was heroic. Then came the part that nearly made me laugh, from sheer disbelief. Patricia snapped open her expensive handbag, rummaged inside, then thrust a notebook toward me. "You owe us money," she said plainly. What?" "For everything we've already put down," she continued. "The planning, the deposits, the engagement dinner that was not cheap, Doris. If you're walking out, you will reimburse us." My friend actually choked on air. "She what?" Patricia glared. "Our family is very generous. We invested in your future with Ralph. That's not something you get to throw away without consequence." I kept my voice steady. "Ralph lied about every aspect of his job. I'm not paying you anything." "You will," Patricia snapped, "or we'll sue for breach of promise, emotional damages, and financial losses." My friend stepped between us. "Patricia, get out." But Patricia kept talking, voice rising at each accusation, insisting Ralph's lies were acts of love, insisting I owed their family, insisting Ralph had sacrificed for me. Sacrificed. He had fabricated a whole alternate life. I took a slow breath. "Patricia, leave. Now. Anything else you want to say can go through a lawyer." She stiffened, nostrils flaring, her voice sharp enough to slice through the air. "You will regret this, Doris Schmitz. My son deserves better than someone who abandons him at the first sign of trouble." I didn't flinch. 4 months of deception is not a sign. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her so violently my friend's picture frames rattled. For a moment, the house was silent. My friend stared at me with wide eyes. "That woman is terrifying." "Yeah," I whispered, feeling a wave of exhaustion wash over me. "And she's not done." I knew she wasn't. She was the kind of mother who created storms, then blamed everyone else for the rain. That afternoon, I needed answers. Real ones. Not Ralph's rehearsed explanations or Patricia's delusional justifications. I opened the shared Google Photos folder Ralph and I used only for future plans, an album full of things we once imagined together. Except now those images felt like a museum of a life that never existed. What I didn't expect were the photos I found buried in the trip subfolder. Ralph smiling on beaches, Ralph sipping wine on terraces, Ralph eating expensive meals in places I'd never seen tagged, Ralph in cities that were supposedly work-related, and always with someone just outside the frame, a woman. Sometimes a hand on his shoulder, Sometimes 2 glasses of wine, but only his face. Sometimes her reflection in a window. She wasn't posing with him directly in every photo, but the pattern was there. Familiar presence. Too familiar. At first, I thought maybe she's just a friend. Then I noticed one picture, the two of them, at a small restaurant table, half lit, leaning toward each other, intimate in a way that no friendship justified. My fingertips went cold. This wasn't a coworker. This wasn't a casual acquaintance. This was his ex-girlfriend, Emily Vargas, someone he'd claimed years ago to be fully done with someone he swore he hadn't spoken to in ages. Apparently that wasn't true either. I didn't want to jump to conclusions not without proof, so I did something I had never done before in our entire relationship. I messaged one of his old coworkers, the only one I had met more than once, someone who seemed grounded and observant. "Hi, this is Doris. I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to ask about something important regarding Ralph." It took 20 minutes for her to respond. Then the messages came in a long, heavy stream. Not only had Ralph been fired, he had been fired for expense fraud, submitting fake receipts, charging personal outings as client meetings. One incident severe enough that the company offered him the chance to resign quietly or face legal consequences. My hands trembled as I scrolled. It got worse. His coworker told me that before the firing, people had noticed how often Ralph visited Emily's office, how often he spent long breaks with her, how rumors had swirled about a possible rekindling of emotional closeness. Nothing physical was confirmed, but emotional without question. I sat still staring at the wall. 4 years together, hundreds of conversations, thousands of shared moments, and yet Ralph had built an entire secret life alongside me. The lies were not accidents. They were architecture. The kind you build when the truth is inconvenient. My phone buzzed. A new message from Ralph. "I heard you talk to my mom. Why are you being so cruel? I made one mistake trying to protect you. If you loved me, you'd understand." My breath left me slowly. If I ever had doubts before they vanished at that moment. This wasn't love. This was manipulation wearing a mask. And the mask was slipping fast. I didn't respond to Ralph. Not to the long paragraphs, not to the emotional spirals, not to the voice notes where he alternated between crying and shouting. I needed distance. What I didn't realize was that distance didn't stop him. It only made him louder in new ways. That morning, I opened my laptop at my friend's dining table and began undoing the life I thought I was building. It felt strangely mechanical, like sweeping up glass from a broken vase, slow, cautious, necessary. The first call was to the venue. The coordinator recognized my voice instantly. She had always been kind to us, especially to Ralph, who filled every tour and meeting with exaggerated stories about his leadership role at work. She spoke gently, offering to refund 60% because we were canceling early. I accepted. It felt like exhaling something painful. Then I moved on to the caterer, the photographer, the florist. Some had strict policies, some were understanding, some sounded annoyed. But I handled each one quietly, crossing items off a list that once symbolized hope and now looked like a ledger of illusions. By noon, Patricia must have discovered what I'd done because my phone exploded. Messages from her filled the screen, long, aggressive, frantic. She accused me of sabotaging her son's future, of punishing him for being human, of throwing away a life she insisted was perfect. Her final message in that cluster was, "You will pay for this." Literally. I expect reimbursement for every dollar we invested. I put my phone face down and refused to reply. That's when Ralph changed tactics. Flowers arrived at my friend's doorstep. 3 separate bouquets in the span of an hour. Then came a series of emotional emails about how deeply he loved me, how magical our early years had been, how he had been fighting battles I couldn't understand. Each message was heavy with nostalgia and selective memory. When that didn't work, the guilt began. He wrote that I was destroying something perfect, that I was choosing pride over love, that I was abandoning him. Then he blamed me for his lies, saying he'd hidden the truth because I would have panicked and made things worse. And after guilt came anger. Long, furious texts accusing me of being cold, unforgiving, cruel. He wrote that I was breaking him, that I was ruining everything, that I had never truly loved him. I didn't answer. On Saturday, I had arranged for his belongings to be packed in boxes and placed neatly in the lobby of my apartment building. I refused to meet him in person. It was not safe, not emotionally, and not logically, so I asked my friend's older brother to supervise the exchange. At 2:15 p.m., he texted Doris, "You need to call me." When he picked up, he didn't even say hello. He didn't come alone. My pulse kicked hard. What do you mean? He brought an entire group. His mom, 2 of her sisters, some woman I've never seen, some guy he claims is his friend, and at least 2 more people. They aren't here to pick up boxes, they're here to cause a scene. I felt my breath shorten. Are the boxes still inside? Yeah. I locked the lobby door after setting them down. They tried the handle. They banged on the glass. They're screaming your name like this is some kind of intervention. My friend pressed a hand to her forehead. Unbelievable. But it got worse. Patricia called the police. Of course she did. She reported that I was illegally evicting her son, that I had locked him out, that I was stealing his property. The police arrived to find a neatly packed stack of boxes, screenshots of the coordinated pickup time, and undeniable proof that Ralph didn't live there and never had. They told the group to take the boxes and leave. Patricia refused. Instead, she took out her phone and started live streaming the entire incident. She filmed the police, the lobby, the boxes, and dramatized every second with a running commentary about how I was abusive, unstable, and vindictive. Her followers, the people in her online community groups, ate it up instantly. Their comments rolled in through the feed like a wave of strangers judging a woman they had never met. By that evening, I was receiving hostile messages on LinkedIn, Instagram, even email. Some accused me of gaslighting him. Some accused me of financial manipulation. One person claimed they had reported me to my employer, which would have terrified me if my supervisor didn't already know exactly what was going on. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. I was too tired for tears. The situation escalated again that night when Ralph sent another long message. You had no right to cancel anything. I reinstated the wedding arrangements. They're calling you unstable, but I told them it's just temporary stress. I'm handling things for both of us. Cold dread ran through me. He had framed me as mentally unstable. I immediately called the venue to verify. The coordinator sighed. He did call. He tried to put down another deposit, but his card kept declining. He said you were having a mental health crisis and needed protection from your own decisions. I thanked her quietly and hung up. That was the moment I realized the truth. Ralph didn't simply lie. He constructed reality. He molded it, manipulated it, defended it, rewrote it. He didn't love me. He loved control. And I was done letting him rewrite my story. So I posted a short message on social media, the simplest, cleanest version of the truth. The wedding is off. Sometimes you discover the person you thought you knew never existed. Thank you to those who've supported me. Ralph called me 31 times in the next 60 minutes. I didn't answer a single call. Patricia sent a 2-minute voice message of pure screaming. I didn't listen. But something interesting happened next. Quietly, almost privately, people began reaching out to me. Friends, mutual acquaintances, even a distant cousin of Ralph's. They all said similar things. This explains so much. He's always had another side. I'm so sorry. You don't deserve this. I always wondered about him. You're doing the right thing. Their messages felt like the first oxygen I had breathed in days. Then my phone buzzed again. A new number. A simple sentence. Hello, my name is Jenna. I think I'm the woman Ralph has been emotionally involved with. We need to talk. My fingers went cold as I stared at the message. It wasn't a rumor. It wasn't speculation. It was real. Ralph hadn't just lied about his job. He had lied about everything. I stared at Jenna's message for a long moment before finally typing back. I kept my words simple, neutral, steady. If you're comfortable, can we talk somewhere public? She agreed instantly. That alone told me she had nothing to hide. People who protect lies usually delay, avoid, make excuses. Jenna didn't. We met at a small cafe 15 minutes from my friend's house. She was already seated when I arrived, hands clasped, restless eyes carrying the same exhaustion I felt. When she stood to greet me, her expression wasn't defensive. It was apologetic, genuine. I'm really sorry you're going through all of this, she said quietly, taking a seat. If it helps at all, I had no idea he was with anyone. Hearing her voice softened something in me. Not sympathy for Ralph, but for all the ways his lies had spread outward, touching people who had never asked to be involved. I nodded. Just tell me the truth. She exhaled shakily. We've been talking for about 2 months. Nothing physical, but emotional, yes. Absolutely. She looked down ashamed. He told me he was single. He told me he was rebuilding his life after a bad breakup. He said he wanted to take things slow, but that he really liked me. My stomach twisted, but I kept my composure. Did he ever mention me? Never, she said instantly. But some things didn't line up. He'd always be vague about where he lived. He canceled on me, a lot. Looking back, it's obvious why. She opened her phone and showed me their text conversations. I was prepared for pain. I wasn't prepared for the level of calculated manipulation. Messages where he flirted. Messages where he confided deeply, sharing dramatic stories designed to make Jenna worry about him. Messages where he said he finally felt seen. Messages where he hinted at a future with her. And then the part that made my blood run cold. A message he sent her the week before everything collapsed. I'm finally ready to move on from my past. This next chapter will be better. His past was me. His next chapter was her. I took my time reading everything. There was no hesitation, no confusion, no blindsiding twist left. Ralph had been crafting a dual life with ease. Lies were not accidents. They were a second language. Jenna watched me, her voice trembling. I'm so sorry. I would never get involved with someone who was lying. The moment I saw your social media post, I thought I was going to be sick. I believed her. She had the same look I had worn days ago, the realization that the person she trusted simply wasn't real. When we parted ways, she apologized again. I told her she didn't owe me an apology. She owed Ralph nothing but distance. She left quickly, almost running, wanting to sever her connection to this nightmare as fast as possible. I walked back to my car and sat there in silence, letting the truth settle like unwanted fog. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I didn't feel shattered. I just felt deeply, profoundly done. When I got back to my friend's house, the last thing I expected was another confrontation. But life with Ralph seemed determined to set fire to every corner of my peace before letting me move on. My friend met me at the door with wide eyes. Doris, Ralph's mother is here again. For a moment, anger flickered through me. What does she want now? She said she needs to talk. She's not yelling this time. She looks different. I wasn't sure if that was comforting or foreboding. Patricia sat in the living room, hunched forward, hands shaking slightly in her lap. Her face looked older, tired in a way I had never seen. She didn't shout. She didn't accuse. She didn't even glare. Instead, she whispered, I need to show you something. Her voice was trembling. I sat across from her, cautious but curious. Patricia unlocked her phone, scrolled through a series of messages, and handed it to me. My breath caught. Messages between her and Ralph. Not from months ago. Recent ones. Messages where he bragged about Jenna. Messages where he talked about looking for something better. Messages where he called me the safety net. Messages where he admitted the truth about his firing and mocked the people at his job as idiots. Messages where he joked about how gullible I was. Messages where he laughed about how Patricia had defended him. I looked at her. Patricia's eyes were wet, not angry, but devastated. He left his phone unlocked while showering. I didn't go looking for anything. I just saw notifications and tapped. And then I kept scrolling. I couldn't stop. She pressed both hands to her face, her voice breaking. I didn't know. I swear, Doris, I didn't know it was this bad. I thought he was just struggling making bad decisions. I didn't know he was this. I couldn't comfort her. I didn't have the emotional space. But I could acknowledge the truth in her voice. He made these choices, I said softly. Not you. Patricia nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. There's more you should see. She scrolled further. These messages were about money. Not mine, hers. Small charges she hadn't recognized. Purchases she thought she had forgotten. Withdrawals she blamed on bank errors. Ralph had been using her cards behind her back. And suddenly everything fell into place. His luxury cafes, his work trips, his expensive dates with Jenna, his carefully curated lies. Patricia lowered the phone. I raised him better than this. I don't know what happened to him. I didn't respond. I wasn't cruel. I just stayed silent, because this wasn't my burden anymore. After several long moments, she asked the question I never expected from her. Can you show me everything you found out I need to understand the full truth? So I did. I showed her the photos from his fake business trips, the messages from his coworker about the fraud, the screenshots from Jenna, the pattern of deception. She absorbed everything quietly, as if each truth added another weight to her already sinking posture. When it was over, she whispered, I'm so sorry for everything, for defending him, for dragging you into this, for not seeing who my son really is. She stood awkwardly, wiped her face, nodded to me, and walked out without another word. I thought that would be the final unraveling of everything Ralph had built. But then an hour later, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Ralph. His words were furious, spiked with panic, accusation, desperation. You told my mother everything. You turned her against me. You've destroyed my life. I hope you're happy. And then the final line. I'm done protecting you. I'm telling everyone the truth. You're pregnant and you're trying to hide it. My blood went cold. He was escalating to nuclear lies, and he wasn't even close to being finished. For a long moment, I just stared at Ralph's message, stunned by the sheer audacity. Pregnant? I wasn't pregnant. I had never told anyone I was. I had never hinted at it. It was so wildly fabricated, it almost felt laughable, almost. Then the dread sank in. Ralph didn't make small lies. He made lies that grew legs, found oxygen, and sprinted into the world. I didn't reply to him. I forwarded the message straight to Patricia with a single question. Is this what he's telling people? She called me within minutes, her voice shaking. He's lying. Again. And no, you're not pregnant. I already took him to the clinic today because he told me the same thing. The doctor confirmed it was a lie. Doris, he's telling everyone, his cousins, his friends, even neighbors, that you're trying to trap him with a baby. He's unraveling. Her exhausted honesty told me everything I needed to know. Patricia was no longer defending him. She wasn't enabling him. She wasn't even excusing him. She was terrified of him. And for the first time, she was on my side, not out of loyalty, but out of horror. I thanked her and hung up, but the worst was just starting. Within an hour, I received notifications from every platform I had. Ralph had posted a long, dramatic message claiming I was pregnant and had run away from him. He tagged me. He tagged his family. He tagged my family. He even tagged my employer. I saw comments pouring in from strangers who had seen Patricia's previous live streams and believed anything connected to her name. People called me a monster, a liar, a manipulator, a coward, a cruel woman abandoning a man in crisis. Somebody even created a GoFundMe titled, Support Ralph Davis, Abandoned Father-to-Be. It had raised a few $100s in just a couple of hours. It was madness, absolute madness. But what Ralph did not expect was Patricia's final breaking point. At 8:14 p.m., Patricia commented directly under his public post. My son is lying. Doris is not pregnant. I have medical proof. Please stop enabling him. The comments beneath her exploded instantly. Shock, confusion, accusations thrown in every direction. But Patricia wasn't done. Within minutes, she posted something I never saw coming. She uploaded screenshots of every message Ralph had sent her. The ones bragging about Jenna, the manipulation, the lies about me, the cruelty behind my back, the admissions about the job fraud, the misuse of her credit cards, and even the photos he had taken on those so-called business trips. She made everything public. Everything. Her caption was short, sharp, final. I love my son, but I refuse to enable this anymore. He needs help. I'm sorry to everyone he has hurt. The GoFundMe shut down an hour later. People demanded refunds. Some apologized to me. Others admitted they felt misled. A few disappeared altogether, ashamed they ever believed him. And then came the message I expected and yet dreaded. Jenna reached out again. Doris. He tried to show up at my job today claiming I had gotten him pregnant. Security removed him. I'm filing a restraining order. You should too. That was when something in me finally clicked. A line I had been too exhausted to cross earlier now became unavoidable. I gathered every piece of evidence, every screenshot, every message, every photo, every recording of Patricia's rants, every abusive voicemail, every fabricated accusation, and I filed for a restraining order the next morning. The process was colder and more bureaucratic than I expected, but the officers who reviewed the documentation were surprisingly gentle. They didn't question my reasoning. They didn't hesitate. Not with everything I handed them. They granted a temporary restraining order immediately pending a full court hearing. Ralph received his notice within 2 days. Of course he didn't take it well. He sent me a final frantic email. Long paragraphs, metaphors about second chances, accusations that I was ruining his life, declarations that he only lied to protect us, then ending with a dramatic claim that I was turning the world against him. I didn't respond. I forwarded it to my lawyer. When the hearing day arrived, I walked into that courtroom more nervous than I wanted to admit. Ralph sat on the other side with a lawyer who looked like he hadn't slept in a month. Ralph himself looked wrong. Polished on the surface, perfect suit, styled hair, a clean shave, but his eyes were frantic, darting desperate. When the judge asked him to speak, Ralph slipped right back into his performance voice. Your Honor, I only lied because I loved her. I didn't want her stressed. I didn't want to burden her. Everything I did was to protect our relationship. The judge listened patiently, then leaned forward. That is not protection, she said with firm clarity. That is control. Ralph froze. His lawyer closed his eyes like he had just witnessed a slow-motion car crash. The restraining order was granted for 1 year. No contact, no messages, no approaches, no surveillance, no harassment. As I walked out of that courtroom into the open sunlight, I felt something strange. Not triumph, not vengeance, just Stillness, like a room that had finally gone quiet after months of alarms. Patricia caught up with me in the parking lot. She looked tired, almost fragile, but also clearer than I had ever seen her. "I'm getting him help," she said quietly. "Therapy, intervention, whatever it takes. I'm sorry for everything, Doris. Truly." I nodded. "I hope he gets better. But it isn't my responsibility anymore." She nodded with sad acceptance. "I know." She left, and that was the last time I saw her. It has been a month since then. The world feels different. Still, gentle, manageable. I go to therapy twice a week now. Not to talk about Ralph, he doesn't consume my life anymore, but to understand myself, my patterns, why I ignored red flags, why I tried so hard to hold together something that was already crumbling. My therapist calls it self-reclamation. I call it breathing again. The wedding fund is now my vacation and recovery fund. My apartment is quiet. My phone is no longer a battlefield. My days feel like mine again. My nights no longer fill with dread or alarms or guilt disguised as love. Ralph is living with Patricia now, working retail, telling anyone who will listen that he is the victim of a cruel ex who ruined his future. I don't care. His narrative is no longer tied to my life. His consequences no longer rest on my shoulders. He once told me lying is love. He was wrong. Walking away from lies, choosing truth, even when it hurts, choosing myself, instead of someone else's manipulation.